The Legend of Khonsu the Healer, the Neferhetep, and the Princess of Bekhten. From the Bentresh STELA. Translated by J.H. Breasted. Titles: Horus, mighty bull, likeness of diadems, favorite of the two ladies, abiding in kingship, like a tomb. Golden Horus, mighty of strength, expelling the 9 bows, king of Upper and Lower Egypt, lord of the 2 lands, Usamaatre Setep Enre, son of Re of his body, Ramses, Meriamun, beloved of Amun-Ra, lord of Thebes and all of the gods in Thebes. The account. Lo, his majesty was in Naharin, according to his yearly custom, while the chiefs of every country came bowing down in peace because of the fame of his majesty. From the marshes was their tribute, silver, gold, lapis lazuli, malachite, and every sweet wood of God's land, whereupon their backs, each one leading his neighbor. Then their chief of Bechten from the kingdom of Hatti caused his tribute to be brought, and he placed his eldest daughter in front of thereof, praising his majesty and craving life from him. Now she was exceedingly beautiful to the heart of his majesty, beyond everything. Then they affixed her tutelary as the great king's wife, Neferure. When his majesty arrived in Egypt, she fulfilled all the functions of a king's wife. When the year 23, the 10th month of the 22nd day, came while his majesty was in Thebes, the victorious, the mistress of the cities, performing the pleasing ceremonies of his father Amun-Ra, lord of Thebes, at his beautiful feast of the southern Opet, his favorite seat of the beginning of the world, came one day to say to his majesty, "A messenger of the chief of Bechten has come, bearing many gifts for the king's wife." Then he was brought before his majesty together with his gifts. He said, praising his majesty, "Praise to you, son of the 9 bows, give us life from you." So he said, smelling the earth before his majesty. He spoke again before his majesty, "Praise to you, son of the 9 bows, give us life from you." So spoke he, smelling the earth before his majesty. So spoke he, smelling the earth before his majesty. He spoke again before his majesty, "I came to you, O king, my lord, on account of Bentresh, the great sister of the king's wife, Neferure. Sickness has penetrated into her limbs. May your majesty send a wise man to see her." Then said his majesty, "Bring me the sacred scribes and the officials of the court." They were led to him immediately. Then his majesty said, "Let one read to you till you hear this thing. Then bring to me one experienced in his heart, who can write with his fingers from your midst." And then the king's scribe, Tutemhab, came before his majesty, and his majesty commanded that he go to Bechten, together with his messenger. The wise man arrived in Bechten. He found Bentresh in the position of one possessed of a spirit. He found her unable to contend with him. The chief of Bechten repeated in the presence of his majesty, saying, "O king, my lord, let his majesty command to have this god brought out." Then the wise man whom his majesty had sent returned to his majesty in the year 26, in the 9th month of the feast of Amun, while his majesty was in Thebes. Then his majesty repeated it before the statue of Khonsu-in-Thebes-Beautiful-Rest, saying, "O my good lord, I repeat before you concerning the daughter of the chief of Bechten." Then they led the statue of Khonsu-in-Thebes-Beautiful-Rest to the statue of Khonsu-the-Plan-Maker, the great god, smiting the evil spirits. Then said his majesty before Khonsu-in-Thebes-Beautiful-Rest, "O you good lord, if you incline your face to the statue of Khonsu-the-Plan-Maker, the great god, smiting the evil spirits, he shall be sent to Bechten." Then there was 2 nods of approval. Then said his majesty, "Send your protection with him, that I may cause his majesty to go to Bechten, to save the daughter of the chief of Bechten." The statue of Khonsu-in-Thebes-Beautiful-Rest nodded the head twice in approval. Then he worked the protection of Khonsu-the-Plan-Maker in Thebes 4 times. Now His Majesty commanded to cause the statue of Khonsu-the-Plan-Maker in Thebes to proceed to a great ship, 5 transports, numerous chariots and horses of the west and the east. This god arrived in Bekhten in a full year and 5 months. Then the chief of Bechten came with his soldiers and his nobles before Khonsu-the-Plan-Maker. He threw himself on his belly, saying, "You come to us. You are welcome with us." By the command of the king Usama'atre-Setep-Enre, Ramses II. Then this god went to the place where Bentresh was. Then he worked the protection of the daughter of the chief of Bechten. She became well immediately. Then said this spirit, which was in her before the statue Khonsu-the-Plan-Maker in Thebes, "Thou comest in peace, thou great god, smiting the barbarians. Thy city is Bechten. Thy servants are its people. I am thy servant. I will go to the place where I came from to satisfy your heart concerning that, on account of which you have come. But let your majesty command to celebrate a feast day with me and with the chief of Bechten." Then this god nodded to his priests, saying, "Let the chief of Bechten make a great offering before the spirit." While these things were happening, which the statue Khonsu-the-Plan-Maker in Thebes worked with the spirit, the chief of Bechten stood with his soldiers before the statue of Khonsu-the-Plan-Maker in Thebes and the spirit itself. And the chief of Bechten celebrated a feast day with them. Then the spirit departed in peace to the place he desired, by command of the statue of Khonsu-the-Plan-Maker in Thebes, and the chief of Bechten rejoiced very greatly, together with every man who was in the city of Bechten. Then the king took counsel with his heart, saying, "I will cause this god to remain with me in Bechten. I will not permit that he return to Egypt." And so this god remained in Bechten for 3 years and 9 months. Then the chief of Bechten slept upon his head one evening, and he saw this god coming to him to forsake his shrine. He saw a hawk of gold, and he flew upward toward Egypt, and the chief awoke in a fright. Then he said to the priest of the statue of Khonsu-the-Plan-Maker in Thebes, "This god, who is still with us, let him depart to Egypt. Let his chariot depart to Egypt." Then the chief of Bechten caused this god to proceed to Egypt, and gave to him very many gifts of every good thing, and very many soldiers and horses. Then they arrived in peace at Thebes. Then came the city of Thebes, and the statue of Khonsu-the-Plan-Maker in Thebes went to the house of the statue of Khonsu-in-Thebes-Beautiful-Rest. He set the gifts which the chief of Bechten had given to him of good things before the statue of Khonsu-in-Thebes-Beautiful-Rest, without giving anything to his own home. The statue Khonsu-the-Plan-Maker in Thebes arrived at his place in peace in the year 38, the 2nd month, the 9th day of King Usama'atre-Setep-Enre, that he might be given his life like Re forever.